And action. Hi, I'm Andrew Priestley, and this is Multiply Your Money, episode number 10. And on the last 3, 7, 8, 9 episodes, I talked about, firstly, I was talking about the book, The Money Chimp, which is where I'm taking all this information from, The Money Chimp. Spend less, save more, get out of debt faster, which you can buy that on Amazon, right? But I was talking about the spend less part. I was talking about the spend less in the spend less, save more, get out of debt faster. I talked a lot about that. And, you know, it occurred to me two things. I don't want to come across as this guy who, it really bothered me. I'm coming across as this guy who's, you know, got a great game and, you know, I've never had money worries and blah, blah, blah. That's not the truth. That's actually not the truth. You know, you've got to ask yourself, how did I end up writing a book called The Money Chimp? And the truth is that at one point in my life, you know, I'm just a workaday guy just like you guys. You know, at one point in my life there, I've got money worries, my credit card is maxed out, I've gone grocery shopping and there's nothing in the account. The card has declined, right? So you got to pay for it and the card's declined, which was incredibly embarrassing. And my credit card was maxed out and, you know, business wasn't working that well. It was really, really tough. And I met a woman called Diana Matthew, who was a speaker. She actually spoke at I think it was a Rotary function that I went to. Not that I was in Rotary, but I went along to see her speak. And she was someone who'd had this amazing job. And she goes to work. And she's told that she's been retrenched. She's made retrenched. And a couple of months beforehand, she'd taken out a loan for an expensive car, and they said, look, we want you to finish up today. In fact, we want you to finish up right now. And she's driving home from that in days, and she has a car accident where the car gets wiped out. Then she ends up in hospital. Then she finds out that the car's uninsured, and the finance company will reclaim the car, but they'll leave her with an £8,000 debt. So she's got credit cards maxed out. She owes £8,000 on a car. She then loses a home. Then she loses her marriage. And the question was, how did she bail herself out of that? And the reason I went to hear Diana speak was because, you know, I was doing it pretty tough with money. And I thought, I've got to fix this. I'm a smart guy. I'm a really clever guy. I've got to fix this. And a good friend of mine, Jock, said, if you're so smart, why aren't you a millionaire? You know. Which really, ouch, that really, really hurt. Anyway, that's where The Money Chimp came out. Now, I backed it up with research. What I did was I went and read a whole bunch of books, and the research really gave me structure and validity to what I intuitively felt and the things that I was doing, but it gave me some smart cuts. And I put all of that in that book, right? So I just sort of give you that little bit of a heads up that I don't want to come across as the guy who says, look, I'm amazing. I know I'm amazing, but I don't want to come across as the guy who says I'm amazing and everything I've done is fantastic. No, I've had troubles. That's why I ended up writing a book on this. Okay, and that's what my stories are inside this book, along with some really great research. Okay. Anyway, the bit I wanted to talk about today was a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I sort of mentioned that. I drew the cartoons, by the way, for my own book. But the picture's worth 1,000 words, and basically what I want to do is I want to give you a test here. The thing was spend less, and I got really interested back then in what am I spending my money on? And I started to pay attention to that. I started to get receipts for everything. I started to read bank statements. But I was really intrigued about what people spend their money on. And the great thing about the internet is you can actually jump on there and you can look up spending habits infographics. You can actually do that research and you can look at it. And you're going to have to play with the names of this a bit, because when I wrote the book, I put in spending habits infographics USA or spending habits UK infographics, and up came, and these are some that I printed out, right? What you get is an infographic that looks like this. Or something like that. This is another one that I've got, right, that I printed out just to show you, okay? And it's really interesting stuff, because it's sort of, this one's the UK spending habits, and it tells you what people in the UK spend their money on, right? You know, it covers things like what do people in Londoners spend, what do the people in the southwest spend, what do people in the Midlands spend, what do the northeast spend, that sort of stuff, and what are they doing in spending, and how they saving, and how they treating themselves. So, there was there's a bunch of really good stuff, and you can find that for the US as well. So I was really interested in what they're doing in the US and also in Australia, and what I found was they're fairly compatible. They're really comparable, right? So the one on Australia that I printed out when I wrote The Money Chimp said that, and I'm reading from this, okay, so I'm reading from this chapter on, infographics. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? In the year that I printed out, Australia had spent, household income was 642 billion, and how they spent that money was, for example, Australians spent 2.7 billion on vegetables, fruit and vegetables, 5.4 billion on chocolate, double, and 9.5 million on dental. There's a story right there. They spent 10 billion on beauty, 9 billion on gadgets, 5 billion on fashion, 2.68 billion going to the cinema, but only 2 billion on education, and 0.78 billion on self-improvement. What it tells me is that, Australians need to make better choices. This is not about spending patterns, though. It's really interesting. The reason I ask people to do this activity is so you can see generally what people are doing in your country. How are they spending money in your country just generally, so you can get an idea. And for me, when I actually did that activity without the benefit of infographics, because I went on the National Bureau of Statistics, or the Office of Statistics in the UK, and I started to see what Aussies spent their money on and what Brits spent their money on. And in that, I could see, I do something similar to that too. So the purpose of looking at infographics, it gives you a little bit of a heads up about how workaday people just like you and me spend their money. Okay, so look, the homework is go on to Google spending habits for your country, and see if you can get a snapshot of how people spend money. Now, the thing that I just did recently was that I discovered that the average UK income is 27.6 thousand, and the statistic that the Royal Bank of Scotland and NatWest said was that young people spend 130% of their weekly income. So if your annual income is 27.6 thousand and you're spending 130% of your income, you're actually spending 35.8 thousand, which is £8,280 more than the average living wage. And that comes in the form of debt, credit card debt. So it's no surprise that young professionals owe 8.7 to 9.3 billion on credit cards. Okay, but this little activity was simply to don't take my word for it. Go and do this little activity. Go onto your Google and type in spending habits UK infographic, or play with words like that, right? What do Brits spend their money on, or what do Americans spend their household income on? Do that sort of search, and you should end up with some really, really interesting infographics like these. Okay, that's the homework. Just try it. See what you can find. It's really fascinating to see. But importantly, I'm not doing that because it's interesting. It's not what it means. It's what it means to you. So have a look at that and say, what does that mean to me? How does my spending match what the average Brit spends money on, or the average American, or the average how the average Aussie spends their money? Okay. Look, a couple of things. I'm going to put a link to there is a Facebook and a LinkedIn Multiply Your Money group, and I'll put the links below. But go ahead and join that, because I'm going to put a whole lot of treats and goodies in there. In fact, I've already started to put some treats and goodies in there. I'm going to put a podcast up there in a minute. But there's a whole lot of great stuff in there that you can get for free. There's no cost. Why am I doing it? Because I really want to make sure that professionals don't have the money worries. It's easy. The rules of money are really simple, and you can get yourself out of debt really quickly. Most people can actually get themselves out of debt very, very quickly. Okay, I just hate talking to professionals who've got no money, and it's avoidable. It's a problem that in most cases it's avoidable. So that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm doing video. That's why you can go on Spotify and search Multiply Your Money, Andrew Priestley, or on Apple Podcasts, and you'll find there's plenty of resources there for you to look at. And on the groups, you can do the free quiz. So if you do it outside the group, it's £25. But if you go inside the group, it's free. I've created a free ticket in there. So make sure if you're in the group, make sure you do the money quiz as well. Just scroll up and down, you'll find the money quiz. Hope that helps. But do some desk search. Do a desk search. Get on there and start looking at infographics. I think you'll find it fascinating. See ya.